Professor of Black Magic Woland, the visitor said weightily, seeing Styopa's difficulty, and he recounted everything in order. Yesterday afternoon he arrived in Moscow from abroad, went immediately to Styopa, and offered his show to the variety. Styopa telephoned the Moscow Regional Entertainment Commission and had the question approved. Styopa turned pale and blinked, then signed a contract with Professor Woland for 7 performances. Styopa opened his mouth, and arranged that Woland should come the next morning at 10 o'clock to work out the details, and so Woland came. Having come, he was met by the housekeeper Grenya, who explained that she had just come herself, that she was not a live-in maid, that Berlioz was not home, and that if the visitor wished to see Stepan Bogdanovich, he should go to his bedroom himself. Stepan Bogdanovich was such a sound sleeper that she would not undertake to wake him up. Seeing what condition Stepan Bogdanovich was in, the artiste sent Grenya to the nearest grocery store for vodka and hors d'oeuvres, to the druggist for ice, and "Allow me to reimburse you," the mortified Styopa squealed and began hunting for his wallet. "Oh, what nonsense!" the guest performer exclaimed and would hear no more of it. And so, the vodka and hors d'oeuvres got explained, but all the same Styopa was a pity to see. He remembered decidedly nothing about the contract and, on his life, had not seen this Woland yesterday. Yes, Kostov had been there, but not Woland. "May I have a look at the contract?" Styopa asked quietly. "Please do, please do." Styopa looked at the paper and froze. Everything was in place. First of all, Styopa's own dashing signature aslant the margin, a note in the hand of the fine director Rimsky authorizing the payment of 10,000 rubles to the artiste Woland, as an advance on the 35,000 rubles due him for 7 performances. What's more, Woland's signature was right there attesting to his receipt of the 10,000. What is all this? The wretched Styopa thought, his head spinning. Was he starting to have ominous gaps of memory? Well, it went without saying, once the contract had been produced, any further expressions of surprise would simply be indecent. Styopa asked his visitor's leave to absent himself for a moment and, just as he was, in his stocking feet, ran to the front hall for the telephone. On his way he called out in the direction of the kitchen. Grunya. But no one responded. He glanced at the door to Berlioz's study, which was next to the front hall, and here he was, as they say, flabbergasted. On the door handle he made out an enormous wax seal on a string. Hello! Someone barked in Styopa's head. Just what we needed. And here Styopa's thoughts began running on twin tracks, but, as always happens in times of catastrophe, in the same direction and, generally, devil knows where. It is even difficult to convey the porridge in Styopa's head. Here was this devilry with the black beret, the chilled vodka, and the incredible contract, and along with all that, if you please, a seal on the door as well. That is, tell anyone you like that Berlioz has been up to no good, no one will believe it, by Jove, no one will believe it. Yet look, there's the seal. Yes, sir. And here some most disagreeable little thoughts began stirring in Styopa's brain, about the article which, as luck would have it, he had recently inflicted on Mikhail Alexandrovich for publication in his journal. The article, just between us, was idiotic. And worthless. And the money was so little. Immediately after the recollection of the article, there came flying a recollection of some dubious conversation that had taken place, he recalled, on the 24th of April, in the evening, right there in the dining room, while Styopa was having dinner with Mikhail Alexandrovich. That is, of course, this conversation could not have been called dubious in the full sense of the word. Styopa would not have ventured upon such a conversation, but it was on some unnecessary subject. He had been quite free, dear citizens, not to begin it. Before the seal, this conversation would undoubtedly have been considered a perfect trifle, but now, after the seal. Ah, Berlioz, Berlioz. Boiled up in Styopa's head. This is simply too much for one head. But it would not do to grieve too long, and Styopa dialed the number of the office of the Varieties fine director, Rimsky. Styopa's position was ticklish. First, the foreigner might get offended that Styopa was checking on him after the contract had been shown, and then to talk with the fine director was also exceedingly difficult. Indeed, he could not just ask him like that. Tell me, Did I sign a contract for 35,000 rubles yesterday with a professor of black magic? It was no good asking like that. Yes. Rimsky's sharp, unpleasant voice came from the receiver. Hello, Gregory Danilovich, Styopa began speaking quietly, it's Likodayev. There's a certain matter whom I have this artiste Wolin sitting here, so you see I wanted to ask, how about this evening? Ah, the black magician? Rimsky's voice responded in the receiver. The posters will be ready shortly. Aha, Styopa said in a weak voice, well, bye. And you'll be coming in soon? Rimsky asked. In half an hour, Styopa replied and, hanging up the receiver, pressed his hot head in his hands. Ah, what a nasty thing to have happen. What was wrong with his memory, citizens? However, to go on lingering in the front hall was awkward, and Styopa formed a plan straight away, by all means to conceal his incredible forgetfulness, and now, first off, contrive to get out of the foreigner what, in fact, he intended to show that evening in the variety, of which Styopa was in charge. Here Styopa turned away from the telephone and saw distinctly in the mirror that stood in the front hall, and which the lazy Grunya had not wiped for ages, a certain strange specimen, long as a pole, and in a pince nez. Ah, if only Ivan Nikolaevich had been there. He would have recognized this specimen at once. The figure was reflected and then disappeared. Styopa looked further down the hall in alarm and was rocked a second time, for in the mirror a stalwart black cat passed and also disappeared. Styopa's heart skipped a beat, he staggered.